Adding images to your website is really key to making the page look dynamic. We love to be able to see what is being illustrated, and that's particularly true when we're talking about a cooking website, any sort of recipe. You always want to be able to see what that finished product is going to be. So in this video, I'm going to go over a couple of things about image size for the web. What sort of pixel size are you looking for? And I'm going to go over how to change that size in Photoshop. And then I'm going to do another video for how to do that directly in Dreamweaver. So I gave you the assignment to create a 3-page website. On each page you have to have a different recipe, and you should have an image on each page to entice us to want to make that recipe. So I just did a quick image search for cookies. And as I'm hovering over here, I'm getting two numbers, and that is the width and the height of my image in pixels. So just as a general guideline, a large image for a website is something generally around like 700 pixels on whichever dimension is the larger one. So 500 by 700, 600 by 700, 400, depending on if it's a square, it's a rectangle. So this would be a pretty large picture on a website. This one over here that's 3,800 pixels by 2,500 pixels would be humongous. Basically, I'd have to scroll to see the entire picture. This would be a picture that would be great for print, but not for the web. So this one over here, 1,199, would be very large. A small size picture, something that maybe would just be a thumbnail or maybe just a small picture at the beginning of a paragraph, would probably be around 50 pixels or 75 pixels. So under 100 is a pretty small image. The larger size image would be 300 pixels to 700 pixels. So most of these images we need to make smaller. I'm going to take this one that is 4,700 by 3,100. I'm going to click on that. What I'm getting right here is not the full size. This is not 3,000 pixels. So if I click on View Image, now I'm going to get it at its original size. Actually, still not its original size. I know because I have the plus sign, and when I click on it, now that's its original size. So if I just took this image and put it onto my website, that's how large it would be. That's too large. So let's talk about how we can resize that in Photoshop. I'm going to just right-click and choose Copy Image and go over to Photoshop, and I'll do Control-N to create a new document, and it's going to automatically create it with the size of whatever was last saved to my clipboard. So in other words, this is the exact size of my original cookie image. Click OK and paste it in. Now, if you don't know Photoshop, let me just point out one thing that happened here is that my image looks smaller. It's not smaller. Photoshop is just displaying it at only 12% because it says, well, there's really not enough room for you to see the entire image at whatever it was, 4,000 by 3,000 pixels. So I'm going to reduce it. I can take my zoom tool at the bottom here, and as I start clicking in, I see that the percent is increasing. And I'm going to click all the way in. Oops, that was too much, one too many, until it's at 100%. So I have it at 100%, and this is, I can see clearly way too large to go onto a web page. So I'm going to go up to Image, Image Size, and this is where I'm going to change my image size. And what I'm actually going to be doing, this is something that is unique to pictures for the web, you don't do this for the print, is I'm going to be resampling my picture. And that means I'm actually going to throw away pixels that I don't need anymore. And the goal will be to get a smaller size image. Right now my image is 43 megs, and that is humongous for the web. I want it to be something under 100 kilobytes. I want it to be a much smaller number. So my width and my height are locked, so I can change it down to my target size. Let's say I want it to be about 300, and I'll say 350 pixels wide. And it adjusted my height, and I have a resolution that is set up for the web, which is 72. I've resampled, which means that I'm throwing away pixels I don't need, and my new image size is 238 kilobytes. And I click OK. So that is a huge drop down. I did say that we want to get it even smaller. I'd like it to be under 100 kilobytes, so we'll talk about how to do that next. Now when I click OK, this is the way my image would look on its web page. Because I'm now viewing it at 100%. So what I see here in Photoshop at 100% is the size it would be over on the web. Now to save it, I'm going to go to File. I could choose Save As, but while I'm here, and since we're using Photoshop, let's talk about Save for Web option, because that's really the most appropriate. Save for Web option has a couple of tabs up at the top. I have Original, Optimize, 2-up, and 4-up. And mostly I work, I have to say, in the 4-up or the 2-up. And what this gives me is it gives me a preview of what my image would look like if I made these different settings over here. So because this is a photograph, I want to optimize it in the JPEG format. I'm going through this quickly because a lot of this material is covered in your chapter on images in the book, and that's where I really want you to get your information. If this was a graphic, something like a logo that I created, and it just had a limited amount of shapes, I would save it as the PNG 24. But a photograph gets saved as a JPEG. So now if I save it at these different quality settings that I have, low to maximum, I'm going to choose maximum, and I can see that this looks pretty good, and it's 85 kilobytes, 85K. Okay, well, the way I like to do it is I keep going down, and I see that my file size goes down, and I'm looking to see if my quality looks any worse, and it still looks pretty good at 38 kilobytes. So what if I put it on just regular high, and I'm at 22 kilobytes? That's nice. I want a very small image. Let's switch it back up. I really don't see a difference between high and very high. My image here still looks very good. And let's switch it to medium. And now I start to see that the image got a little bit grainy, and so it's not as good. So I can keep it at high, and it's now only 22 kilobytes. Remember, my original image was 14 megs, and now I've brought it down to 22 kilobytes. So that is great. And I'm going to hit save. And here's the key, is that you want to save it in your root folder. So I have to think here for a minute where I have my root folder. Maybe it's in Web Art Design and Cookies. And I have another folder inside of Cookies called Images. And that's where you want to save it. You want to be organized, have a folder inside it. It talks about that in the book. So I'm just going to call this Chips. And hit save. And now that's done. So now when I go over to Dreamweaver, and if I refresh, because I have my site Cookies open, I refresh, it's now there. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to talk about how to do pretty much those same steps, but directly in the Dreamweaver panel.